Dear tech team, are we ready? The Sangha is invited to come back to our breathing so that our collective energy of mindfulness will bring us together as an organism, going as a river with no more separation. Let the whole Sangha breathe as one body, chant as one body, listen as one body, and transcend the boundaries of a delusive self, liberating from the superiority complex, the inferiority complex, and the equality complex.
From the depths of understanding, the power of great eloquence the Bodhisattva stands majestically upon the waves of birth and death, free from all
Dear friends, dear community, let us listen to three sound of the bell. The three sound of the bell is the voice of the Buddha, the voice within us, inviting us to come home to our in-breath, our out-breath, so that we can establish ourselves in the very here and now. The here and now is where we are alive, where we can be in touch with the miracle of life, be in touch with the community that is breathing all together. Dear respected Thay, dear beautiful community, dear brothers, dear sisters, dear friends online. Today is March the 11th in the year 2022, and we are in our first full day of our retreat, Coming and Going in Freedom. In this very moment in France, we are also listening to the rain. I don't know if you can hear the rain through these microphones. And listening to the Dharma Talk is also an opportunity to open our field of mind and let the Dharma as rain come and penetrate. So I invite you not to take notes, not to write down what we feel is important. Today's technology is all going to be recorded, so you can revisit it. But the best way to listen is just to be in the here and now, to allow us to be present and just let the words, let the teaching penetrate into our mind. And we don't have to decide whether it is correct or not, but we give it an opportunity to touch the store consciousness that is in each and every one of us. We have many seeds that are sown in our human body. And today, and in this retreat, we will have a chance to touch and nourish and water these seeds that are present. Today, I would like to speak on the different bodies that we have been transmitted from our blood ancestors as well as our spiritual ancestor. And let us begin with our physical body. The practice of mindfulness is always mindfulness of something. We want to become aware of what is happening in the world, but to not be carried away by the destruction, the anxiety, the fear, the sorrow, and all of that is manifesting in the world. It is always important to also have a stability, a ground, in order for us to maintain and to observe and to meditate. And the first practice of every practitioner, whether we are monastic or we are lay, we learn to come home to be aware of our own body. This body is a miracle. If we are in touch with our body, we are in touch with the miracle of life. And this miracle of life is a teacher for us. Because we are alive, we have many conditions and many opportunities. And taking care of our body is not just the physical, but in the physical body, it holds also our consciousness. It holds all of the experience that we inherit. We inherit from our blood family, our ancestors, and we also inherit from the world. So in us, there is also the world. In us, there is also our father, our mother. So this insight gives us an opportunity to also take care of the suffering of our parents, our ancestors, in the very here and now. So coming home to the body is very basic, but at the same time, it is a very deep practice. Because only when we are available for ourselves, we allow our mind to be united in our body, can we be truly, truly alive. Enlightenment is to be awake. And we want to be awake to ourselves. We want to be awake to what we are sensing, what we are feeling, what is manifesting in the very here and now. And the safe place to become alive is to be in touch with the here and now. We can feel the body because the body is connected to us. If we feel scattered, we feel lost, the safe place to come in order to be in the practice of mindfulness of the body is to return inwards. Yesterday, orientation, we were shared how to come home. And the very basic practice is to become in touch with the in-breath and out-breath that is miraculously happening in every moment. As I breathe in, I connect to that in-breath. As I breathe out, I connect to that out-breath. That in-breath brings us home to this moment. You can feel the body. You can sense if there is any tension, any agitation in the body. Let us become aware of our own body and see if there is any tension, any agitation. And with the out-breath, let us soothe, let us relax that tension, whether it's in our face, on our shoulders, in our arms, our upper body, or our lower body. Let us all practice this together. Breathing in, we become aware of the body. Breathing out, we relax the body. with just 3 deep in-breath and out-breath like that, we allow ourselves to be present. And this is the first practice, the first wing of meditation, is learning to stop, learning to pause, in order for us to be in touch with the here and now. We know that life is very fast, and today there is a lot of moments when we are running towards the future or being carried away into the past. And so this practice of establishing in the present moment is so crucial in order for us to establish our own concentration of learning to be alive. We know that sometimes we walk, we don't know where we are going. We walk just because there's a sense that we feel lost, we feel empty, and we are searching for something. And this searching is also an inheritance. We're always looking for something outside of us. This searching may also be a condition for us to come to a spiritual practice. And maybe in this spiritual practice, we have an opportunity to find our true home. And in the teachings of the Buddha and in the teachings of Thay, our true home is in the very here and now. And this is from our teacher's own experience. As we know that the suffering that our teacher faced was the ingredients for the insight, the fruits of the Dharma, the fruits of the practice. And in Plum Village, we have a Plum Village anthem. Normally, we sing it before walking meditation, and it is, "I have arrived, I am home." And this song is not just a song, but it is a deep insight. It is the first Dharma seal of Plum Village practice. Because this insight allows our teacher, who has transmitted us this teaching also, that no matter where you are, if you can be in touch with your in-breath and your out-breath, allowing yourself to be in the here and now, you have an opportunity to be in touch with your true home. Your home is not a country. Your home is not just a house. Your home can be where you are in the present moment. If you can have that concentration and feel comfortable in the present moment, you have an opportunity to embrace, to look at the suffering, the difficulty, and allow your true home to transform that suffering, transform that difficulty. So I have arrived, I am home. It's not just a statement, but it is a practice that we channel by our mindfulness of breathing, our mindfulness of walking. Each step that we take in this retreat is an invitation for us to arrive more deeply. We have a practice of slow walking meditation. That practice may be a key practice for those of us who may be quite agitated and have the tendency to be more fast, more quick. And this slow walking meditation can be allowing us to go to gear 2. Don't go to gear 3 and 4. Stay in gear 2 so that you can truly arrive more and more in the present moment. We have the intention, but to slow down is a process. It's kind of like a fan, like a fan that is running for a long time, and suddenly we want to stop. The fan needs time for the fan to slow down. So some of us who are maybe newer to the practice, we may see that we want to slow down, we want to pause, but we can't yet or our moment of pause is just a split second. And therefore, maybe our concentration is not yet established, it's not yet trained. But we have to continue to practice this. And our body becomes a part of our practice. Slow walking, one step, one breath. We are at home. Our home now becomes our Dharma realm, our spiritual home. Within the day, where there's not an activity with the Sangha, you pick a distance from your meditation cushion or your sofa to the dining table. Before you start your lunch or your dinner, those steps becomes your practice of slow walking meditation. You're at home, so it should help you arrive more at home. So walk in the awareness of breath and step. And you can feel the contact of your heel touching the ground, to the sole of your feet, to your toes lifting your upper left body, sprinting forward a little bit. You can have a slow motion of sensation, of feeling. And you can truly develop this concentration of the mind dwelling in the present moment. And in this practice of walking, your step becomes your friend to establish this dwelling in the here and now. So your body, by allowing it to nourish your spiritual practice, at the same time is being cared for by your present moment. Your awareness that you are here with the body. A lot of us in the last 2 years have worked much more in front of a screen, much more virtually. So we are communicating, connecting through space and time, and that is a miracle in itself. But it's very easy to have gained this habit of being outside of the body. And this can allow our body to establish different tension, different pain. And so practicing to be home to the body is learning to listen to the body. We may have stress, we may have a lot of things to make us move forward, but that is also an accumulation and a pressure that we are putting into our own self. And the practice of mindfulness is also to have an awareness of the limits of our body. We may be young, like a lot of us in this hall, and we may like to have the mind, it's okay, I'll rest later. I will take care of myself later. And I am at fault at this. I do this a lot. But now I am more aware of the signals of my body. Just yesterday, it was a very intense day for myself. With a lot of joy, we had a wonderful bhikshuni meeting, and then a Dharma teacher meeting, and then I had 2 podcast recording, and then suddenly I see my lips and had a rash and start to crack, and I can see, this may be stress, this may be over worrying, overdoing. And I learned to listen, and I learned to practice relaxation. And today, it feels already much better. But if you are not aware of that, you allow yourself to continue on just as is, and you are not listening to your own body. So this insight that you have a body, the body is life itself. The body is what gives you the opportunity to life. We know that we have a responsibility to care for the body. And we know that this body is also a continuation of our ancestors. By living in this moment, we are, even if our parents, our ancestors are not present anymore, they are alive through us. We can continue them in this very moment. And this insight allows us to live for our parents, to live for our deep ancestors have not had this opportunity of practice. And maybe they may not have the conditions and the opportunity to meet the Dharma, or they are not yet open enough to want to practice, put into practice. And we shouldn't be sad. We don't have to be in sorrow, because we know by us practicing, we can practice for them. And if there is an opportunity, the conditions may come that opens a door for them to experience. But with this awareness, we practice for our parents. We practice for our ancestors. I enjoy listening to this rain for my ancestor. I enjoy being in France, being in an international community with so many wonderful people for my ancestors. They live in an era where airplanes and transportation and peace may not be there. So by channeling and being mindful of them, I invite them to be alive in my physical body so that they can experience this sound of the bell, this collective energy of breath, this collective energy of presence. And I invite all of you to also invite one of your ancestors to be alive in this moment with you. And when we become aware of our body like this, we know we have a responsibility to care for it. So what we consume is also our responsibility. We know that there are many elements that nourishes our body, but there is one aspect that we do every day is the way of consumption. So by practicing mindfulness, we also learn to be mindful of what we consume through our mouth and how we nourish our physical body. But in the body, we also are caring for the mind. In our teachings, when we practice becoming aware of the body, we are also taking care of our mind. And when we take care of the mind, we also take care of the body. We know that these two are working hand in hand. So what we nourish by our senses should also be a practice, awareness of what we consume through what we see, what we hear, what we smell, what we touch. That is also a way of nourishing and caring for the body. And this takes training. Sometimes we live in a a very busy city, or we live in a place where there is a lot of energies of violence, of anger, of disruption. So our body naturally tense up, and our body naturally feels fatigue because it is receiving so much information, so much senses. So becoming aware of how we find a balance in what we see, hear, touch, feel is also a practice. We have the 4 nutriments as a teaching, and there's a sutra on the 4 nutriments of how a practitioner can practice consuming and through the mouth as well as consuming through our senses. We don't have enough time to go through all of that today, but I am also just opening fields so that we can explore as we continue to practice the Dharma. And we know that we are of the nature to grow old. That is the first remembrance. And life is of impermanent. With this awareness, you know that we also practice to not be attached to the physical body. And this insight of impermanence is not to scare us, is not to make us suffer, but it is a bell of mindfulness that we are of the nature to grow old. I cannot escape growing old. So we have to learn to also live the energy that we have now. If we are young, enjoy the vitality of youth. Invest in the energies that is present. Nourish your foundation, nourish your Dharma, nourish your attention. Because when us monastics, we grow older, you know, we have also a lot of responsibility. You don't retire as a monk or a nun. Actually, the more you grow older, in principle, you become more wise. So there are those who would like to take more refuge in you. And when you are at that age, you also learn to be at that age. You learn to enjoy the experience, the stability that you have gained. And we don't lose anything because we are enjoying the present moment of the here and now. Sister True Dedication shared that I had the chance to be very close to Thay. And one of the miracles that I saw in Thay was the more he grew old, the more he was young and fresh, but at the same time wise and stable. You can even see it in the pictures. If you look at some of the pictures when Thay was in his 70s, compared to in his 80s, Thay, for me, in my own observation, in the 80s, Thay was more fresh and full of compassion, full of love. And those of us who were earlier in the monastic life when Thay was training us at an earlier stage, he was a little bit more strict. But in the late 2010s, I saw Thay become softer and more compassionate to the training. And I know that this is from the experience that Thay have gained by learning to train his students, learning to cultivate the community. So we, each and every one of us, will also have an experience in our own age, our own physical body. But we learn to be at ease. We learn to accept our body. Even if there is pain, there is illness, we accept that also. Because as a human, we are of the nature to get sick. We cannot escape illness. And that is a reality. That is a fact. We don't practice Buddhism for superpower, but the superpower is to embrace and accept. And when you embrace and accept, maybe you heal much more quickly. And you allow yourself to grow from the illness. I am of the nature to die. I cannot escape death. That is another reality of being a human. And so with this awareness, life becomes more beautiful. Waking up this morning, you have 24 brand new hours. How are you going to live these hours that you have in the here and now? There's a sentence in the sutra, the Buddha said, you cannot bargain with life, with death. Sometimes it may come unexpected. So you cannot really plan for it. But at the same time, but you are alive, you can enjoy life. You can live life fully. And by living life fully, that is what you are offering as your continuation. That is your freedom. By being alive, by being in the here and now, you are free from the past, the present, the fears, the doubt. Because in this moment, if you are living the fullest, that is the best you can offer to life. You are free. My experience that I have with Thay was the way he lived every moment. Every moment, every morning, Thay had a rhythm that was his practice. He would wake up. After that, we would make tea, and we would enjoy that cup of tea together, fully. And that cup of tea may be your last cup of tea, but if you enjoy that cup of tea in that morning fully, you have nothing to regret. And that's what I felt when I drink that cup of tea with Thay. That this cup of tea is a cup of tea of the here and now, and is the cup of tea of life. And when you drink it in that way, your life is a message in itself. And then the practice of Thay would come and join the sitting with the community and enjoy the presence of the Sangha. So these very practice, very subtle, very simple, cup of tea, walking to the hall, sitting in the hall, looking at the community. This is awareness that life is precious. And if one day I need to say goodbye, there is nothing for me to regret, because we are living it fully. And it sounds simple, huh? But it's something that is very possible that we all can experience, we all can do, and it's something that we can also transmit. And we know that our actions of body, speech, and mind, what we offer each day, is going to be our continuation. So our physical body is also, even when it disintegrates, is not here, but our legacy can be continued through our speech, our action, and our mind, our insights that we may offer, the teachings that we may offer. And when we say teaching here, don't think it has to be a Dharma talk. teachings here can be an act of kindness. It can be an act of care. It can be an act of forgiving. That can be a very deep teaching, an act of mindfulness. The way we walk is also a teaching. The way we look at each other is also a teaching. The smile is a teaching in itself. Because all of this can have a very big impact for ourselves as well as the ones around us. So through our body, we know we have a responsibility to care, to nourish, and for us to aspire to realize our aspiration. And in the last few days in the Upper Hamlet, we've had two friends that are here to also offer their expertise on caring for the body. And we can learn, but at the same time, in the practice, we know that by learning to relax, learning to release the tension, learning to come home to the body, is a transmission from our own teacher, from our spiritual teachers as well as the Buddha. The Buddha came home to the body, looked deeply within the body, and saw the suffering that was within, and he was able to understand the roots of the suffering, and he was able to be free from it. So our body can be a teaching for us if we know how to listen to it. That is the human body, the living body. The second body that we are inherited and we are offered. And when you practice with us in this retreat, you are also transmitted it. This is the Dharma Body. We all have a spiritual dimension that we can cultivate and then we can nourish. And this spiritual dimension, this Dharma Body, is so crucial for our well-being, for our refuge of the dispersed mind, our refuge of all of our worries, of all of our anxiety and suffering. We can be a victim of it, we can allow it to control us, and we can become a victim of all the habits that come with all of these feelings and emotions that manifest. But if we establish our Dharma Body, we become present for what is manifesting. We look at the suffering that is present, and we use the Dharma Body to transform this suffering. Recently, I am sure a lot of us are aware of the suffering of the war that has manifested, and I'm sure there is a lot of tension that has accumulated also in our body. And we have to be present for that. We don't push it away, but our practice is to be in the here and now, holding it like a baby, and channeling the inner peace to care for this wound, this suffering. There's a lot of suffering that comes with war. The beast of war is discrimination, violence, hatred, anger, greed, pain. And just by being alive and seeing the news, we feel connected to the suffering also. And maybe the compassion in us will also have a chance to manifest because we see the suffering. And for me, one of the information that I received that was very painful, beside the destruction and the deaths that are happening, was also the racism that was also there. Hearing the information and the news that people of color were being pushed away and not being allowed to escape the war, it triggered something very deep in me. I would say I was very angry. There was rage that came up. And in my mind, like, how, even in this moment, that we have space for racism, we have space for discrimination. And I can feel my energy, I can feel this heat coming up in me. The practice kicked in, and it said, "You are angry." And I had to put my hand on my stomach, and I had to feel the breath. And I can even feel the tension in my body just with that thought. And I can see this root of suffering in humanity, that we still discriminate, we still separate ourselves, even in the face of war, even in the face of death. I can become a victim of that. I can become more angry. But what I knew I had to do, the voice of the Dharma within, the voice of the Buddha within, the voice of Thay within, told me, embrace your anger, embrace your rage, become the mother to hold that suffering. And I knew just by being still, it was accumulating too much. And I wanted to channel that energy through my body. And I practiced walking meditation. And I really invited the anger to be with each step. Breathing in, anger, walk with me, my left foot. Breathing out, anger, be with me in my right foot. So in that moment, you aware of the energy of anger. And then we bring the Dharma body and we bring the energy of mindfulness. Not to push it away, but to shine light on the anger. And then you embrace the anger. You soothe it. You let it be with you. Because that anger is you. And what also naturally happens if you awaken the seed of mindfulness, then your other seeds of compassion starts to come and can embrace the seed of anger. And the seed of anger has a chance to calm down and to sit quietly. And now different energy has a chance to manifest. And in this awareness of the anger, I was deeply in touch with the roots of suffering. And I know that inside of me, I am at a continuation of my ancestor. So my ancestors from Vietnamese heritage, we also suffered a lot from war. My father was a refugee. my own ancestors were also part of the war. And the war that we fought was also towards Western powers. So when this seed and this awareness came up, I was in touch with the suffering from my ancestors. And I said, dear ancestors, I'm going to help transform this seed. And I walked alone. And to be frankly, fully open, at that moment, I wanted to avoid my brothers, my friends, who, sorry to say this, but have white skin, because it was triggering. It was bringing up something deep within. And I just learned to not bring in more energies that I need to deal with. And of course, in that meditation, walking with my anger, the Dharma Body gives me insight, gives me compassion, saying, these friends who are doing such act is because nobody has taught them interbeing. Nobody has shown them that in this moment we're all connected, that your suffering is also my suffering. My safety is also your safety. And by that awareness, this nectar of compassion was born. And my hatred, my seed of hatred, was soothed, and it was being transformed. And I can continue to see that all of us are brothers and sisters in the garden of humanity. And we are more than the color of our skin. We are more than the belief of a religion. Because deep down inside, all the Dharma, all the teachings of other spiritual teachings is to help us be more loving, help us have the capacity to heal, to connect, to see one as the other. And for me, the language is the Dharma Body. This is the foundation for me to transform and recognize the suffering. And with this awareness, I am making the Dharma Body alive. So this Dharma Body is something that we need to nourish each day. And we have to make it a foundation for us so that when these suffering manifests, these emotions, these difficulties, obstacles, your Dharma Body gets automatically turned on. And this is possible. But first and foremost, we have to practice to nourish the Dharma Body when we are at ease, at peace. We are stable enough to nourish it, to build it. Do not wait until you suffer to then call for your Dharma Body. It may be too late. You may not have enough mindfulness to embrace and transform. That's why the day-to-day practice, the day-to-day activities that we have, and for us in this retreat, is an opportunity to identify, cultivate our Dharma Body. Even those of us who have practiced for 10 years, 20 years, the Dharma Body is like the human body. It is also a living organism. If you don't nourish it, your Dharma Body will also fade away. So the Dharma body is something that we have. It is also a transmission from the spiritual lineage. Our teacher has been teaching us, have been guiding us. So that becomes now our Dharma body. And we take the teachings from the notions, intellect, and we put it into practice. And this is engaged Buddhism. This is applied Buddhism. Channeling the inner peace in order to take care of the despair, the violence, the anger that manifests in you. Our stability, our peace is also a contribution to the suffering. Wherever there is darkness, there is light. Wherever there is suffering, there is happiness. Wherever there is war, there also has to be peace. And let us be that element of peace so that those who need a refuge can be in touch with that peace so that they can find that inner peace in them. And this is what the Dharma body is telling us, that this inner peace is to be cultivated and to be established by our practice in our body. There are other teachings of the bodies in Buddhism, but in the Plum Village and teachings and in Thay's teaching, the third body that Thay speaks about is one of the Buddha's masterpiece, and it is Thay's masterpiece in my eye. That is the Sangha Body. The Sangha is a body. We learn to see that we are cells of this big body, and each and every one of us is taking care of ourselves, but at the same time, it is a contribution to the bigger body. The Sangha is like the frame to hold all of us together. And the Sangha is made out of practitioners, out of brothers, sisters, friends, lay people. And the Sangha is the place that can become a refuge so that we can continue to nourish our physical body and our Dharma body, especially our Dharma body. We have the aspiration to cultivate it, but our habit and our way of life may not yet be strong enough for us to practice as an individual. And we may need the reminders of different practitioners for us to be encouraged and to be encouraged to practice, yes. Sometimes you feel overwhelmed and lost. And sometimes you just need to have a cup of tea with some of your Sangha member, some of your friends, some of your brothers and sisters. And that is a kind of refuge. That is a space so that you can also take refuge in the energy of your Sangha. And the Sangha is also the place that can help you realize your deepest aspiration of helping the world, of serving living beings. We learned this from the Buddha himself. After the Buddha was enlightened, under the Bodhi tree. After a few weeks, he knew that he had to go and create a Sangha. And he had to look for elements to create his Sangha, his community of practice. And he went to the deer park, because he remembered he had 5 friends that they have abandoned him because he saw another way of practice. And when he found the 5 friends, he offered the first Dharma Talk. And they became the first Sangha member of the monastic order. And later on, it expanded. 1,250 monks, and not nuns yet, right? Monks. And then later on, the nuns community, and of course, all of the lay friends that would come. And the 5 mindfulness trainings was also introduced and taught by the Buddha for the lay community so that they can live a life of mindfulness and have ethics so that they can walk the path of compassion and love also. And that's the good news, because you don't have to be monks and nuns to live a life of mindfulness, a life of compassion, a life of awakening. But as a lay practitioner, you also have an opportunity to cultivate these seeds, these capacity of taking care of suffering and transforming, and as well as contributing to your own circle of lay friends, of businesses, teachers, etc. And in the Sangha, we have the harmonies that we have to practice. A Sangha has to have a harmony, because that is the strength of us all coming together. And this harmony is a practice we have to do every day. It's not just 6 rules and we post on a poster and we leave it on a wall. But the harmony is something that we cultivate, see by practicing together, eating together, listening, deep listening and loving speech. Just recently, I listened to one of Thay's talk, and Thay said one of the most powerful instruments for our Sangha is deep listening and loving speech. If you can listen with compassion, you become a place of refuge. And if you can learn to speak words with kindness, that can rebuild communication and even help reconcile. We know as a Sangha member, we will meet difficulties with each other. We may not see eye to eye. We may have some different preferences, some different ways that we want to contribute. But that should not be an obstacle for us to flow as a river. That should not be an obstacle for us to have brotherhood and sisterhood. And this is something that I feel in this very moment, this new era for our community, we have to continue to invest in. How do we continue to have the harmony, the brotherhood, the sisterhood, as we continue Thay's beautiful legacy? Because Thay has said that what will continue Thay is his community. That is like an inheritance he offered to us. And we know that a Sangha, just like the physical body, the Dharma body, the Sangha is also a living organism. It is to be examined, reviewed, cared for, nourished, heal, rest, act, engage, nourishing the bodhicitta of the Sangha, nourishing the mind of love of the Sangha, knowing when we're at our limits. There may be times when we may not have the answer, but it is okay, because by the practice, light may offer the answer, and it takes time. We are still young. We are young disciples, young practitioners. have trust in the Dharma body, have trust in the Sangha body, and we can grow together. No, we don't need one particular hero or one particular legend, but all of us as Thay's students, monastic and lay, we can all contribute to the magnificence of the Sangha. And I think it is quite revolutionary that Thay said, one Buddha is not enough. In maybe some other tradition, you look for one you look for one Buddha, you look for one master, you look for one person to lead all of us. But we know that in our situation of the world, our global suffering, you need more than one person to wake up, to have a real change and a real impact. We need many, many communities of mindfulness, many communities of love, many communities of refuge. And that is why Thay's encouragement for all of us who join retreats and who go home to find elements and to set up a Sangha, to set up a community. At the beginning, maybe just 4 of you. And do not be discouraged. You continue, you continue. You know, when I first came to Plum Village, the retreat very small. In the autumn, maximum 5 lay friends. And only monastic. But Thay never said, okay, if we don't have 100, I don't give a day of mindfulness. You keep the consistency, the diligence, because you build the Sangha and you build a refuge, and slowly the birds will all come. The birds will look for a home, a nest, to nourish their spiritual dimension, their Dharma body. So this Sangha is also a jewel. We have the Buddha jewel, the Dharma jewel, and we know that the Sangha is also a jewel. And Thay has said that the safest place to look for the Buddha and the Dharma is in the Sangha. The Buddha is not just a statue, it's not an image. The Buddha is the seed of awakening. And that leads us to the 4th body, the Buddha body. It is the nature of enlightenment in all of us. And the good news is we all have this Buddha nature in us. Because Buddha nature is the seed of mindfulness, the seed of concentration, and the seed of insight. Smriti, Samadhi, and Prajna. That is the 3 trainings that we practice every day in our Dharma body. And this Buddha body is also a transmission that we have received. And for our new friends, now you have received it. So you have to care for it. You have to recognize what are the elements that will nourish our Buddha body, our capacity to look at ourselves, to accept ourselves. The Buddha wasn't looking for the Buddha outside of him. The Buddha was discovering the Buddha nature within him. So we don't have to look for the Buddha outside of us. We have to recognize the Buddha nature within us. And by accepting us, we allow this Buddha nature to manifest. We allow ourselves to be the seed of mindfulness, to be the seed of action that embodies care, embodies transformation, embodies compassion. And by practicing this, we keep the Buddha alive. And the Buddha is not of the past. The Buddha is also alive today. Thay believed that the next Buddha will be a community. And that gives us a responsibility, but that also tells us that we can rely on each other to nourish the seed of awakening. Sometimes we're only 20% Buddha nature, but others may be 50% Buddha nature. Sometimes we are just part-time, and sometimes we may be full-time for the day. And by this practice of community, we establish this collective energy. And this collective energy, if we open ourselves to it, we can offer ourselves a place of healing and of rest. Sometimes I get overwhelmed, and I learn to just release myself, and I say, Sangha, carry me away. And if you truly let go, the Sangha's energy embrace will come. And you can ride on the mindfulness of our brothers, our sisters, our friends. That's why sometimes I like to take refuge in the novice brothers, because their fire of practice is stronger, because they are very, very fresh. Their bodhicitta is very strong. And we can also take refuge in our younger brothers and sisters. And so by this awareness, every cell of this body is contributing to the Buddha body, the Sangha body, and is nourishing the individual Dharma body and nourishing the individual human body. And we know by being alive, these three bodies have a chance to manifest. The Dharma body, the Sangha body, and the Buddha body. And the best part is that we don't have to travel anywhere to find the Buddha, the Dharma, or the Sangha. Because if we have this insight, then the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha becomes alive in us. And as an individual, I also nourish the Sangha awareness in me. I know that I am connected to the Sangha. So my stability, my transformation is also the transformation of the Sangha. And this is where I find all of my energy. The success, the failure, when we have this insight of interbeing, it gives you an immense source of energy. It doesn't mean if you become a Dharma teacher, you get more pay. We all still get 40 euros a month. We all still enjoy the same meal, sitting in the same hall. But the deep freedom is what we enjoy by being in the Sangha. Because you don't have to be caught and you don't have to be attached to one's success or one individual's failure. And this insight also helps us practice to let go of our pride and let go of our ego. In the Sangha, we need many leaders, many teachers, but we all do it together. There are moments that I am not good at something, but I know on my left there's this sister, on my right there's this brother. And I don't have to feel inferior or I don't have to try to push, to show off, to be superior. Because as an organism, we can enjoy the talents of each other. And by this awareness, you also allow yourself to have this opportunity to nourish new talents in you. I came here when I was only 13 years old. I didn't know much. The first thing I learned to do was fold my blanket. And then I learned to cook with the brothers. Got yelled at a few times for not washing properly or cutting too big. But then all of these training and all of these connection by being with the community gave me so much talent, so much capacity. Learning to recognize the body. I used to, whenever I get nervous, I used to move my body a lot. And that's why you see me in Dharma Talks, my hands are always like this. But it's already much better. I've held this part quite still. But I can't stop my hands. But I remember when I became work coordinator, and I was in Deer Park Monastery, and I was giving a presentation on the project. And the venerable next to me, he just put his hand on my shoulder, and he said, "Be still, my child." And I still feel that gentle palm on my shoulder every time I get agitated. I have sensation in the body, and I want to fidget. I want to move. I can feel that palm, and that is thanks to the Sangha. That is thanks to Sangha members that can see my weakness, can see where I can improve. And they, out of love and care, they help you. So as a Sangha member, we also have to train each other, because we need training in our Dharma body, in our physical body, in our Sangha body. So allow also ourselves to be trained, because it will help us become more and more solid in our practice. Because there are so many talents that we can train in ourselves that can be a support as an individual, but a support for the community. So let us in these 3 days, full 3 days, nourish our physical body, nourish our Dharma body, nourish our Sangha body, be in touch with the Sangha body, and nourish our Buddha body, the seed of awakening, seed of mindfulness, compassion, and love in us. Thank you very much, dear friends. And tomorrow you will continue with Sister Chan Duc, Sister True Virtue. Let us listen to 3 sound of the bell so that we nourish all 4 bodies by just the simple practice of mindful breathing being established in the body, in the here and now.